Salutations all, welcome back. Let's get into another kitchen adventure, yeah? What are we doing today? Well, classic, and I do mean classic. Little chicken pot pie. It's what I had in the refrigerator. It's what we had to work with. It's what we're making today. Let's get into it. All right, what are we gonna need for this dish? Let's start with our mirepoix. Remember what that is? So I had a half an onion. I had 5 petite carrots. I call them petite, they're pretty small, but we're gonna work with it. I had some celery left over. Pulled some rosemary out of the garden. We had the fresh thyme and sage left over from Thanksgiving. They're still looking good and edible, so we're gonna use that. I've got some fresh parsley here as well. I've got about 2.5 pounds of chicken, all right, that we need to get rid of before it goes out. And I'm using randoms on those, so those are pretty big breasts. We're gonna cut those in half or butterfly those and then dice them up. I've got about a half a pound of butter here. Of course, your salt, pepper, and I've got some potatoes. I like to add potatoes to mine. It just adds a little bulk to it, makes it a little hearty. I also like to add the mushrooms, but I don't have any today. So what? We've got peas, and I've got some corn as well. You're also gonna need a little bit of cornstarch. We're gonna use a slurry to thicken this up and tighten it. I found these adorable little pot pie pans across the street at Albertsons. Now these will hold 1 cup of liquid, okay? 1 cup of liquid. So I've got 8 cups of chicken stock over there on the side. Now if you're using store-bought chicken stock, make sure that you are tasting it. Even when you buy the low sodium, go ahead and taste it first, because if I say, hey, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt to this, and you haven't tasted that stock, it could be salty, and then you're gonna be mad at me, and it's not my fault because I wasn't there. Critical thinking. All right, let's get into this. First thing that we're gonna do is get our chicken diced up. So I wanna kind of show you a little perspective on that chicken there. And they say more than a handful is wasteful, but I don't agree. And these are called randoms. We spoke on this before. When you buy randoms, they are bigger than the average size chicken breast, the 4 ounce and the 6 ounce that you normally get in your grocery store. And they're not all of the same size, which is why they're called randoms. However, they are always bigger than what you normally get. So there's 1 lobe right there, what they call lobe. My hands are, you know, I'm not Andre the Giant, but they're not little either. So I just want to show you the size on that chicken. So I leave all of the fat on my chicken, unless it's just over the top. And I do that because the fat is flavor, all right? Store-bought chicken does not have flavor. That's why everything tastes like chicken to people. There's no flavor, all right? So we're gonna go ahead and cut that. We're gonna butterfly that. The reason I'm wanting to dice it small is because you saw the size of the container that we're going to use for these pot pies. So we don't want huge hunking pieces of chicken in there. It'll be very, very difficult to chew. And you just want this to be a nice and easy dish to dig into. So we're going to dice this up. And I've got my pot on the stove getting nice and hot already. Alright. So very, very important too. You know, I can't stress this enough to people. If you do a lot of cooking at home, invest in a nice knife set. Alright, you want something sharp, or at least keep them sharp, whether you're using the little hand sharpeners or you want to go classic and get a nice set of stones to do that with. I prefer the stones. I think it's very therapeutic, but that's for me. So as you can see here, we're dicing these pretty small. It's pretty small little dice on the chicken there. There's going to be so much of it in these pot pies that's not going to be an issue. Alright. So I'm going to finish dicing up the rest of these breasts, and then we're going to get into the rest of this dish. So we've got that chicken diced up, ready to go. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and brown it off, and then we're going to pull it, get our veggies done, and we're going to go back in. Y'all pray for me. We got a new camera set up. Still a little shaky around the in pot angle. Hopefully we don't lose another camera. Alright, going in my olive oil. Just a little bit lubrication. With our chicken. Now we're not going to season the chicken or anything like that. I just want to get a little color on it. And once we get a little color on all of our little nubs there, we'll pull these back out. Cup up our veg, get into making this deliciousness. Now while we're waiting on that, something to think about as well, I I have leftover sourdough, so that's what I'm going to use. Of course, you can use Play-Doh. If you really want to get nice and fancy, you can find puff pastry dough in the freezer section of most grocery stores, and you can really get nice and cute. Get a nice buttery croissant. Use the I think Pillsbury makes a pretty nice one. There's some other brands out there. You can top those pot pies with that as well. Alright, it's all about what you like and who you're trying to impress. I'll give that a little bit more time, get a little more color on those chunks there. Looking for that GBD, golden brown deliciousness. Golden brown deliciousness. And then we are going to get into our veggies and herbs. Now remember, I'm using fresh sage, thyme, and the rosemary as well. Not really necessary. If you've got some on the pantry or on the spice rack, by all means use that. But remember that when you're using the dried herbs, it's concentrated basically. So you're going to want to add a little bit, let those reconstitute, get that full flavor out of them. Taste what you're making, and then decide whether or not you're going to add some more. Alright, so when we're using that dry, we want to go bit by bit, baby step it in there. Alright, and then also if you were questioning, maybe you don't see them, or you need to ask somebody at the store behind the little pot pie dishes. This particular brand is Handy Foil, and the size on these is a 5-inch in diameter, and it's about inch and change in depth. But like I said, that will hold 1 liquid cup of water all the way right up to the brim, right? Not over the brim, just right up to the little brim there. And they come with lid, so spectacular. It's an awesome little single serve item. And then once they're together, you can just freeze those bad boys and then have them for later on in this non-winter. I mean, at least here in the South. I don't want to disrespect you Northerners. I know it's cold as crap up there. Alright. So we got our chicken where we want it. We're going to take this off the heat and start working on our veg now, alright? Let's get into our veg. I'm going to start off with my carrot. Now the carrot is one of those things in the kitchen that sneaks up on a lot of people. Just a quick little story. I used to work at a country club many moons ago, and after a very long week, we put in 100 hours, over 100 hours for that week. We're all standing around prepping, we're cutting carrots. I go to cut a carrot whole, we're cutting it into coins, called coins, little circles like that, and the carrot rolled on me, and I hit the tip of my finger, and when you talk about sobering up real quick, waking up, that will definitely do it. So, for this though, we're going to cut these in half, right? We're going to cut them in half, so we're making quarters, we're going to dice these. Alright, just like that. I'm doing these first. We're going to put all my veg into one dish and then dump it into my pot. And I want the carrots on top to start with, because I don't want them to turn into mush with too much cooking. Alright? And it's all about what you want, of course. I'm doing this because I'm trying to make small portions of this dish. I want for the eater to be able to get almost everything in the dish in each bite. So if you've got a good sized spoon that you're eating this with, you should be able to get a little carrot, a little celery, some onions, the chicken, the whole shebang in every bite. It's just a preference thing, right? Just an experience thing. Does it change the flavor? No, not at all. Not at all. Alright. So, make sure that when you're cutting, you keep those fingers tucked in. If you want them, anyway, you keep them tucked in. Okay. And, being fast and making all that chop noise, I mean, yeah, it's impressive. You really want to show somebody something, especially people that don't cook all the time. It's real cool, but like most things, just focus on technique to begin with. Speed will come later. Alright, speed will come later. I've lost quite a few tips of fingers and fingernails in my youth trying to be cool. Alright, so we're going to cut up the rest of the carrots, then we're going to get into our onion. We've got our carrot done and set aside, and we're going to get into this half of onion. So the way that I prep my onions, imagine the other half is there. I cut the top and the bottom off so that they will sit flat on the cutting board. And then, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm cutting, say, red onion for burgers, I cut a little end off, like so that it'll stand up. Sorry, whiteboard, white onion. So it stands up like that, and then I can hold it and I can cut the rings out of it, cut nice thin rings for my burgers. Considering that we're going to do a little dice on this, of course we just lay that bad boy flat. Now if you want to be all technical and pretentious about it, or French, technically you would come in from the side like that, and shimmy down, right, all the way down to the bottom, and then you start dicing. They do that because it makes nice little, square, symmetrical pieces of onion. If you're staring that hard at your dish to criticize the way that a small onion is diced, go to your room. Okay, so I like to just come along like so, and turn it and come down like so. And take that last one and do the same thing. Now I'm wearing the gloves. I mean, I'm at home. My hands are clean. The kitchen is clean, but I am really big about things on me. I'm real weird about stuff on the skin, smells and things. And as much as I love onion, that is a smell that will stay with you all day. You can go and buy these little stainless steel, they look like little bars of soap that are made specifically for getting those sulfur smells out of your hands, so your garlic and onion and things like that. That's why we're doing the gloves too. It just makes everything a little easier. Alright, onion is done. Let's get into that celery. So for the celery, we leave it long, like so, and follow the body down. Boom. Boom. So I got 3 pieces out of that one. Same thing. Just going to give it a little dice. If you're wondering, this is a vegetable, this is a Japanese style vegetable knife. I love this thing. I use it for pretty much everything, at least at home. Okay, so we're going to be real brief on the preparation for the fresh herbs. Just to show you how I get down with this. Now I'm going to take the herbs and keep them separated because I want to slowly add in to get the flavors that I want, and I want to make sure that they're nice and balanced. So for your rosemary on the sprig, okay, if you ever wondered, you just grab that like so, and you pull like that, and those bad boys come right off of there. Okay, I mean you can, alright, little camera malfunction there. Okay, so once it's off there, I mean after that you just chop it up, and you're good to go. For the sage, the fresh sage, I will take those leaves off the stem. We will roll them and then slice them that way. It's called a chiffonade, and then we will dice them from that point. And with the thyme, you'll treat it like you would with the rosemary. You grab that little sprig there, you put your fingers on it, and you pull. And alright, so we've got our mirepoix ready to go. Okay, you can see the pan has been over here staying warm for us. We're going to crank that heat up a little bit, get it nice and hot. And first thing we're going to do is go in with the mirepoix, of course. And I did the veg in a particular way because I wanted the celery to hit that pan first. We're not going to add any oil to the pan like that. The celery, of course, is mostly water. It'll start to steam itself. But I also want it to release those natural sugars and start to caramelize on its own. The celery, not the onion this time. I know we've talked about that when we've been cooking onions in the past, but we want the celery to get a little color on it. So as we let that bad boy heat up, now I have not forgotten we do have potatoes, but those are not going to go in until closer to the end. And I'm going to just do a really small dice on those as well. So it won't take very long to cook those through. Those will go in later in the process, right before we go in with the parsley. Alright, so let's go in with our mirepoix. Boom. Now when I'm doing this normally, we go in with a little bay leaf as well. I actually have some ground dried bay that we're going to use for this dish. So once it goes in, we're going to just let it sit for a minute. We don't really want to stir it around. Remember, stirring it sweats it, right? It causes it to steam. If it's releasing its juices, it just steams. We want it to caramelize, which is fancy for burn. Specifically burning the sugars that are in it. We'll have to make a caramel video one day. Fun, a little scary, fun. Okay. Man, that smells so good. I wish you guys could be here for it. Love that smell. So we're going to let that go for a bit. I'm going to reach over here and grab one of my favorite kitchen foods, garlic. We're going to go into this with 1 teaspoon of garlic. A heaping teaspoon of that. See? Trying to do better. Trying to do better. Alright. Now we're going to go ahead and give that a stir. Outstanding. Okay. So while we allow it to do its thing there, we are going to go in with that half a pound. It's a little less than half a pound. It's only about maybe, I don't know, 5 ounces or so. Maybe 6 ounces of butter, so it's not quite half a pound. Does that make you feel better? I know it makes all the cardiologists feel better. Nutritionists. All of you people judging us. Alright, we're going to let that do its thing, let that butter melt down. Okay. I hope everybody is enjoying the weather here. It is like 68 degrees outside, spectacular. Are you jealous? Alright. Now, I'm going to go in with, you know what, I'll try my best. I will measure this. I will measure this for you. I don't want to just tell you. I'm going to measure it. So the amount of rosemary that I cut up, I'm putting it in this little spoon here. Boom, I knew it. I should have just said it. Alright, 1 tablespoon. Boom. That's a tablespoon. Mark it. I'm going with a tablespoon of that. We're going to go in with about 3/4 of a tablespoon of the thyme. No Morris. And about a tablespoon of the sage as well. Okay. Well, that's the start. Shouldn't have to add any more than that. I think that amount right there for the amount that we're cooking will be spectacular. But we do have some set back just in case. And it's all up to you. That's why you add it a little bit at a time, right? Now we're going to let that keep going. We're going to stir it here in just a second. We're letting that butter do its thing. In our next video, when we get into the butternut squash soup, we'll talk about browning butter, which is delicious. Delicious. Okay. Alright. Off the sides. As that butter finishes off melting down, we're going to go in with our chicken. Got the chicken in there. We reach over here and grab our chicken stock. Now remember, I've got 8 cups of stock in this dish. 8 cups of stock. You're like, Lucky, you said those will only hold 1 cup. You're right. You're right. I know. But I anticipate a little evaporation. And maybe there'll be enough left for me to make a bowl of soup out of it. Chicken pot pie soup. Whoa. Alright. So, what I'm going to do, we're going to let this go, right? Now, that stock was room temperature. I didn't go in there with cold stock. So, it's going to take a little bit. We're going to bring it up right to a nice little rolling boil. Okay? At that point, I'm going to throw in the potatoes. And it'll probably take, considering the size that I'm going to cut them, it'll take about let's call it 5 minutes for the potatoes to get nice and tender without falling apart on us. We want them to hold up. If I had mushrooms, that would be the same time that I threw my mushrooms in. Then we would hit it with a slurry and finish it off. Alright, so we're going to pause for a minute. I'm going to cut up some potatoes while we bring this back up to temp. Okay, so you can see we've got a nice soft roll going with the soup here, or with our filling. We'll call it soup really. I would get a little bit closer, but I'm scared. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm clumsy and I will drop that camera. I know I will. So anyway, we've got that roll going, right? So now we go on with our potatoes, okay? I like to use the golden potatoes. I just think it's a really nice buttery potato. It just works out, okay? Alright, so we're going to go in with our potatoes. Alright. And we're going to go in with our seasoning, the rest of our seasoning. Alright, so now the stock that I'm using is slightly seasoned. Alright, so remember I said you've got to taste everything. I gave this a little taste. We're going to go in with just a teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of salt. And we're going to go in with a half a teaspoon of black pepper. Okay, and we're going to let that come back up to a nice roll. Take about, like I said, about 2.5 minutes, up to maybe 5, depending on your stove and the size you cut those potatoes, and give this a little taste. Spot on. Alright, once we get the potatoes tender, as our carrots should almost be there already, nice and tender, still have a little bit of bite, they're not completely mush. Once we have that up, what we're going to do is we're going to hit this with our slurry. Remember, the slurry is your cornstarch mixed with cold water. Okay, I would take the consistency of it to just under what an Elmer's glue would normally be. So I would say Elmer's glue to a little thinner than that. And we're going to stir that in until we get the right consistency, what we're looking for this consistency. And then we were going to finally go in with our peas, our corn, and our fresh parsley. And we'll let that cool. We'll get it into our little tins, get our dough on top of it, and go from there. So our potatoes are where we want them to be. As you can see, we have a full rolling boil. Alright, so we're going to go in with our slurry. Just want to add a little bit at a time while you're stirring the dish. Now, for those who, maybe you just want to make a little soup, you don't want the whole cobbler thing, or the pot pie aspect, you can still do the same thing. You can tighten it with your slurry. Once you get it a little over tight, you hit it with a little heavy cream and make a nice creamy chicken pot pie soup. Take that cobbler dough or whatever dough you're using and bake it off, crumble it up right on top of that soup, kind of like crackers. That's what I like to do as well. You can also do the same thing with leftover chicken pot pie. Take the whole thing, dump it out of the tin, add a little heavy cream to it, warm it up, boom, soup. Alright, let's go in. A little slurry at a time as we stir it, and you will immediately feel this start to thicken up. It's a wonderful thing about the slurry. It's kind of an instant thicken versus a roux, which is flour and fat. Takes a little longer sometimes. So you really got to go slow with that roux and let it do its thing. Alright, we're going to go a little more. I'm constantly stirring that. I don't want any of that to try to settle on the bottom and burn on me. And go a little more. I want my filling nice and stewish. Okay. We'll turn the heat down on that bad boy. Now we're going to add our peas and corn. Now I know what I've made here is a lot, but I'm intending on having this as soup later. I'm gonna do up some personal pies for some folks, drop them off, because I didn't call anybody before I did this. Shame on me. And I'll use the rest of it for soup. Alright. So that's the gist of it right there. I'm going to let this cool down a little bit. Then we're going to go in and start building our little personal pies. Apologies. So after I cut the heat, I got the thickness that I wanted on the liquid itself, and I cut the heat, I went ahead and added the parsley. I hope you didn't forget about that. I don't like the parsley to cook for too long. I wanted to add a little flavor. To me, parsley tastes like green. I know that sounds crazy, but think about it. Okay? Alright, now, if you are wanting to serve this hot, steaming right out of the pot there, of course you're going to put it in whatever vessel you're going to use for serving. Put your dough on and pop it in the oven. Okay, but remember, we can freeze these. Alright, now I've got my oven set to 375 because I'm going to cook some of this off to take, but I'm going to freeze a few of these as well. If you're planning on freezing it, you want to get that filling as cool as possible. Okay, you want to let it really, really cool down. You can actually find things like ice sticks at different restaurant stores, which is just a plastic container that you fill with water and you freeze. You can take a nice freezer bag, like a Ziploc freezer bag, fill it with ice and put it down in that liquid as well. You want to get it cool. You don't want to let it just sit out and cool naturally. Okay, that's how we get foodborne illnesses. Okay, so I'm going to use a perforated spoon or slotted spoon right now to get the base of my filling out of there. I want to make sure that there's enough chicken in each one and enough vegetables, make it balanced, right? And then I'll go back with a ladle and top it off with a little more liquid. Okay, so you see I'm going just under the lip there, just under the lip. Got a little flour in my hands from the dough. Okay, I'm going to top these off. And again, you can make a dough, you can make pie dough. Pie dough is very, very simple to make. Very, very easy to do. You can top this with biscuits. You can top it with pretty much anything, honestly. It all comes out delicious. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to finish this off. Then we're going to roll out our dough and get these topped off. Get a couple of them in the oven and a couple in the freezer. Alright. Our filling set to the side, and we're going to let that continue to cool a little bit, get that cooled down. And then work on our cobbler dough on our topping. So you can use a ring mold. This one, I don't know what size it is, to be honest with you. Slightly smaller than the actual dish itself, so I would say about 4 inches, I guess, in diameter. You can take that, you can cut it, and then you can just stretch the dough out to fit. So what I'm going to do though is we're going to take it square. Alright, and I'm going to put a little flour down so it doesn't stick to my board. And then just gently work it out. Okay. And if you like a lot of crust, you know, you love that buttery crunch, you might want to leave it a little thicker. You can always roll it thin and then fold it over, double down on it. It shouldn't take too much to stretch this out, because it's stuck. I use my scraper there, a little more flour. Can you do this with rice flour? You know, I've never tried making dough with rice flour. I don't see why you couldn't. That will help those that need to be gluten-free. For the keto ends out there, you know, I don't know. There's so many new products coming out for keto right now. It's pretty incredible. Alright, so I've got it out as large as I'm going to want it to be, and I'm going to take my fork and I'm going to just poke some little holes right there. That's just to make a little vent, so as it cooks, as we reheat it and it cooks, some of that steam can escape and it doesn't make a giant bubble on you. So we're going to get these topped off. I'm going to actually make another large one to take somewhere as well. I've got a lot of filling left over, and I guess we'll post some pictures of that finished product. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so here's our first mini fresh out of the oven. I brushed the crust with a little bit of olive oil just to speed along that browning process. And so remember, this went in for 15 minutes just to cook the topping. The filling is already, for the most part, done. This is why we talk about leaving some bite in our vegetables, because we're going to continue to heat that, right? Go in the oven. So if you don't want them to turn into nursing home mush, you want to leave a little bit of bite, a little texture to those. Don't cook them all the way through, because we're going to continue that process. So we've got that one done. Let's see. Let's get in there. That look about right? Look about right? Okay. Oh, chicken pot pie. It's really that simple, y'all. Alright, everybody. So that's chicken pot pie. Pretty simple. A lot of things you can do to change that up. A lot of variations. You can take that leftover chicken pot pie, turn that right into a soup. Don't forget, you can freeze those bad boys when you do them in the individuals like that. Freeze them. Thaw them completely before you put them into the oven. It's not quite stovetop. There's no special science to it, but to keep from burning it, make sure you thaw it all the way through. I hope that you enjoy it. Let me know how yours turns out. What's the next adventure? Oh no, come back and see us.